I mean, philosophically, we even question the whole idea of personhood. What does it mean to be a person? You know, if these creatures are demonstrating these kinds of complex emotions the way we do, and they're managing language in their own way. After all, it's not that they can't manage language, it's that they didn't have the vocal cords, don't have the vocal cords the way we do, to speak the way we do. But when Penny Patterson taught Coco sign language, she bypassed that and gave Coco a way to express herself through language in a different way. She now has a vocabulary of over 2,000 words, and she can express her desires. You know, and so if these creatures are able to do that and work with language and display the emotions that we have, and reflect and reason and remember and conceive of themselves as beings, they have this idea of themselves as existing on this planet. They have an idea of what they want and what their past was and what they want in the future. That's typically how philosophers define the notion of personhood. A person is a creature who has this conception of time, the past and the future, and has this idea of themselves and their own pasts and their own desires, what they want in the future, and can express themselves and express their emotions and reflect. And Coco was doing all of these things, does do all of these things. She's still with us. And other mammals are doing it too. So much work now is done, you know, with dolphins and dogs and pigs, who are much like dogs in their playful, cute and clever ways, and we're learning more about the world we live in. And so I'm grateful to ethologists like these ladies and like so many more who I haven't named, who've enriched our idea of the animal world. The point, the philosophical point, or I should say the further point, you know, besides that of looking at the notion of personhood, is this. It's becoming impossible to draw a line between us and them. So we've had this tendency to draw a very divisive line between us and them, based on characteristics that we assumed we had and they lacked. Like tools, but of course Jane Goodall helped us see that it's simply not valid to draw a line there anymore because we're not the only tool makers. Language, Coco has helped us see that we're not the only ones that use language. You know, so many creatures have their own ways of communicating with one another, and in some cases very sophisticated ways of communicating with one another that we simply don't understand. Reason, we assumed we were the only rational creatures. Emotions, well, anybody who has a pet knows that they're very emotional creatures, very dramatic creatures in some sense, in many ways. And in the not even in the medieval days, even going back to the Age of Enlightenment, there was a common belief that animals lacked a soul. Well, I'm happy to report that even popes these days dismiss that idea. And so we're going in the right direction, to be sure, you know, but I still hear things, you know, that make me stop in my tracks, and I sort of say to myself, wow, we still have these beliefs. You know, I hear things like, well, I don't see animals doing advanced calculus or going to the moon, you know, or doing brain surgery. And I always think, I'm not doing those things either. You know, I'm certainly not doing advanced calculus, and I'm not going to the moon, and I'm not doing brain surgery. In reality, only a few humans are doing those things. But it's a moot point. It's a moot point anyway, because we all have different kinds of talents and abilities. You know, there's a plethora of different abilities that humans have, and a variety that we have even among our own group. You know, we can't all jump as high as Michael Jordan, or you know, plant figures on the board like Einstein did. But yet, I have my modest talents, and you know, my friends all have their talents. Some can paint and some can sing. And so it becomes almost absurd to try to say that value is based on some sort of talent or ability that we have and they lack. We simply can't support that kind of division or that kind of yardstick, to try to say that this is the yardstick that we must measure value by. And if you can do this thing, then you count and you get to sit inside the moral circle. That would mean that those who lack that particular ability would have to get outside the moral circle. And then, which ability should we pick? We've got another creature in the bushes. And extending this line of thought to the wider set of sentient beings, why set any human quality at all as the yardstick, as the measuring stick of what bestows upon you moral value, of what constitutes the standard? Which ability, which standard shall we go with? It makes no sense. After all, there are some things they can do that we can't, but we very seldom stop and think of this. I remember a story I heard about dogs who can recognize cancer cells. Humans can't do that. We simply don't have the sensitive, shall I say, tools they have. Not only to smell, but to identify and to recognize and to distinguish among different cells, and to make it known what they're finding. Owls, it's amazing the sophisticated high-tech, sonar detection system that they have that allows them to focus in on things. So owls have this unbelievable, sonar detection system that we scarcely understand. And not only that, but they have an ability to focus in on what it is they're sensing, what it is they're picking up. They have this magnificent power of concentration to block out irrelevant sounds. And I would venture to say quite readily that we lack that ability to concentrate. That's what we try to nurture. When we take up the practice of meditation, for example, we try to nurture that ability to concentrate. We throw expressions like attention deficit disorder around so easily these days because in our postmodern high stimulus society, we seem to have lost our ability to concentrate, or we simply haven't developed it the way we could. Maybe we could learn a lot from different animals in that sense.